you.
Did you do that, Chris, or did I? Must have been me.
It may have automatically started it too.
Yep. So I think everybody's back. Well, Heather, you're here. Heather, you are DeWitt, right? Yes, Heather?
Yes, I am. I'm DeWitt and Pyatt.
Yep, Pyatt DeWitt. Perfect.
Yep.
All right. You signed on as something different before, so now I see you. Okay.
Yes,
hey guys,
I moved locations.
Yep, that's fine. I think everyone is here. Okay, to encourage the interactive part. This is going to be more interactive, so you got to stay on your toes. Jill, you win a prize. Watch for a prize coming your way. You have a copy of Slime King. Oh, I should give you something else because you're a pre-K person, but this is a great pre-K through 2 book. Slime King, and you're gonna make corn plastic with it. It's a great book in our book series, and it's available as a teacher grant. So Chris and Stephanie have prizes too. They're gonna hand out prizes so that you've got to be encouraged to talk and interact. But first, we're gonna go to Connie Eman. And Connie is a part of our magic coordinator team, our magic team. And this is a group of coordinators who've worked with FCAE, FK. They've worked with FK and they've developed the magic kits. Now she's going to talk to you a little bit about magic kits. You have them. Most of you have them or parts of them or pieces of them because they're big tubs in that storage closet. One thing I will tell you, and Connie will reinforce here, as you're going through stuff, don't throw anything away until you know what it is. All right, I'm not gonna say you can't throw anything away, but know what it is first. So Connie's gonna take about 10 minutes and go over some magic material, and then we'll get into AITC 101. Connie, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Kevin. Can you see my PowerPoint okay?
Yes, we can. Connie, you're good.
Great. All right, so as Kevin mentioned, we have what are called magic kits, and there's agri-learning kits. So you're gonna see a bunch of tubs potentially in your office area, your storage areas. He said, don't throw anything away until you know what it is. If you're not sure, ask one of us. We'll be happy to share with you, what it is, how it can be updated, how it can be used. But those tubs, all the curriculum in them has been updated. There's the website there where they're all at. I also dropped that in the chat box. They are all aligned to the Illinois Learning Standards. So by each lesson, there's charts that you're going to find and stuff that tell you, which standards are met. Those are also on each lesson. But we have lessons that span several different topics. Illinois is a general one. It has, I think, about 30 to 40 lessons in it. So there's a bunch of those. And you're going to get this brochure, I believe, in your box that you get for next week's meeting. So there's Illinois, there's dairy, insects, machines, plants, poultry, and soil are kind of our big umbrella areas where we did lessons from. On this lesson brochure that you're going to get, it's also online, and there's a spot down there where it says there's a fillable spot for you to put in your local contact information. So you can share that you have those available locally. And if you don't have these available locally, there's parts of them that you might want to have available. But when you go to start doing presentations, this is one of the first places that I would recommend looking, besides all the great, wonderful Illinois Ag and Classroom materials and resources that you see on their website that you're going to learn more about this afternoon. These are things that you can loan out to teachers. You can send them now to the website where the lessons are all online, that they can download a lesson. They can download several of them. They're multidisciplinary. So we cover everything from science, English language arts, social studies, and math. So great lessons to use, tried and true. These have been used for many, many years. We originally created them starting back in 2004, and these were built off the old agri-science kits that you might still have a few of those floating around too. So they cover lots of different things, very hands-on. My favorite things to use. So like I said, when you go to decide what you're going to share in a classroom, this is our first place where I like to look. I know they're hands-on. I know they're tied to the standards. I also have kits that have a lot of the materials in there to do those activities that I want to do. If you go to that website, you'll see Illinois, soil, plant, and insect are already posted. Dairy, machines, and poultry will be posted soon. We're hoping by the end of the month to have all that up there. We also, those tubs that you have will need some updating. So we also have some list available there on the website of suggestions of how to update them. Maybe this is the kind of materials you can take out of the tubs, and these are the things you can put back in, you know, how to update the binder, that type of thing. The whole idea behind the kits originally was to give the teachers everything they needed to be able to do the lessons without having to get anything extra unless it was a consumable item. Such as if you're making ice cream, you know, you're not going to provide the milk in the kit, but everything else would be in there for them to do the activity. So that's the design behind the Magic Kits. You might also see some agri-learning kits. Those were thematic, so things like on apples, pumpkins, pizza, poultry, dairy, pigs, wheat, and adventures around the farm. So you'll see some other things. Those were thematic in nature for more of the lower level teachers. The Magic Kits are more 4th through 8th. They can be adapted down, they can be adapted up easily. But the thematic kits, the agri-learning kits were more K through 4, maybe occasionally K through 5 for pizza and wheat, some of those kinds of things. So that's a little quick overview of that. But to really get you into one of them, I believe Kevin and his crew sent you my tassel to table stuff. So you got the tassel to table lesson, and you had some pictures that I had cut out for you. So if you want to take time to see if you can put them in the right order of how does something like corn, that is in many of our cereals and other things that we use, how does something like that get from the farm to your table, and putting that together in that process. I've got pictures here of some of the ways that I do that. The other thing that you got in your packet was a little cardstock envelope, and inside were some materials, and you can see in my picture on the right, the kids are putting those together. That's the simpler version that Illinois Ag and Classroom shared with us years ago of, again, tracing that corn from the field to their cereal box. And I used a little envelope for them to draw their favorite cereal on. So let me share with you some ways that you can use this lesson. One of the reasons
Connie,
it is on
if
my—
I can stop you for a second.
Sure.
I think your screen share is maybe frozen. You're mentioning things that, at least on my computer, I'm not able to see. So you may want to stop screen sharing and start again.
Can you see that?
Yep, there you go. Yep, perfect.
So did you see any of the other slides?
I don't think so, no.
Okay, let me go back and show you if I can here real quick. So there you can see the kids are putting together the little cereal boxes that you've got just with the yarn, and they simply string those pieces through there after you put them in order. I'll flip back real quick to the beginning. Sorry, I didn't know it wasn't working right. My apologies. So you've got the website in the chat. Also on the website, I mentioned that there's the charts that show the lessons and what standards are met. The brochure is going to be on the website soon, and you're getting that, I believe, in your box next week that talks about all those different kits. And then the suggestions thing is also on the website. So now let's talk about tassel to table again. Are we back to the right one? All right. So tassel table, again, tracing from the farm to the table, what that whole process is. Lots of different ways you can use this in your lesson. You have the 4th through 8th grade version of it. You can actually take those pictures that you see there on your screen, and you can put those— I just put mine in sheet protectors. I made them bigger in sheet protectors, and the kids stand and hold them around the room. If you can't do that, you know, COVID conditions and stuff, you can give them the smaller pictures and they can put them together in order on their desk. You've got the younger version that I gave you with the cereal box that Ag and Classroom created. Also in the lesson, there's a flow chart to go with it. And there is a PowerPoint within the lesson and on the website with the lessons that you can use if you prefer to use a PowerPoint instead of one of the other pieces that we've given you. One of the neat things about Tassel Table is there are so many different ways you can use this and many different audiences you can do this with. So like, can you talk about that whole process of how something gets from the farm to you, talk about that whole supply chain, but you can talk about careers. What kind of career opportunities are out there for students that they could be thinking of? There's a lot of things, as you know, between the farm and the table that require lots of jobs. And so you can talk about that. You can definitely use this at teacher workshops, including your summer institutes or summer academies. pre-service programs, sharing it with college students who are future teachers, as well as, if you need to do a presentation at a Farm Bureau meeting, extension meeting, soil and water, Rotary, Lions, anything like that, this can be a good lesson to do in that way as well. So I gave you a few things that you can do. I didn't want to be just the one all talking. So if you want to put any of those things together, you can. You've got the lesson to know how they go together. If you're not too sure, well, how would I talk about this? There's even a little sample script in the lesson that you received. So let me see. All right, I was trying to stop my screens here. Thank you for doing that for me. I'm not sure what button I hit wrong there. I wanted to share a couple other quick tips as new coordinators that I thought you should know. Number one, if you're working in the schools, one of the first things I recommend is make sure you know who those school support people are, the secretaries, the people that are answering the phone, letting you in. Write down their name, call them by name. They are your ticket inside to those classrooms, often to the principals, to the teachers. Know them by name, call them by name. If you're doing something, like if I'm making ice cream or pumpkin pie in a bag, the people in the office always get, pumpkin and pie in a bag or ice cream or whatever, as do the custodians. Those are the people you want to take care of if you're working in a building. You definitely want to keep the administrators in the loop, the principals and stuff, but try and do your contacts directly with the teachers if you can. Don't rely on the principal to forward your information on. Some do that, but they also have a lot of things that they're dealing with. So if you can direct things directly to the teachers when you can, even better. Don't forget our amazing network, excuse me, of coordinators. There's 80 to 90 of us across the state. And one thing I love about our network is everybody's very good about sharing and helping. We want to see you succeed. Sometimes we've been there, done that before. Sometimes we might have some ideas. Sometimes we might just have some real easy tips and tricks. How do you do something a little bit easier? How do you prep something so you can maybe get it done a little bit faster in a classroom? Everything from using, it says some things you might need tape. We stick labels and we use labels as tape. So little shortcuts that we can help you with, but we're here to help you. Don't feel like you have to know everything. Agriculture is a big industry. You can't know everything about everything. That was one of the FCA field advisors told me when I first started, which really helped because sometimes you might feel hesitant about teaching a topic that you don't know a lot about. But just be willing, if a kid asks you a question you don't know, say, I don't know, but I'll find out and get back to them with an answer. I think that's it. Anybody got any questions for me? I know I went through that really fast, but I know they said I had like 5 to 10 minutes, so I was trying to not overuse my time here, guys. If I can help in any way, let me know.
And again, Connie said, reach out to others. I'd start with the folks right around you, counties right around you. If you haven't introduced yourself, make sure that you do that and get an opportunity for to meet folks. I will have the information updated, but your county manager, your interested others, your responsible employment official will probably be able to tell you who's in the counties around you. So look for that, and that'd be a great place to start. As always, that Facebook page too, lots of great information. And again, it's like any other form of social media. Just because someone says it on there doesn't mean it's the way you got to go, but you should be able to find a lot more ideas. All right, with that, we're going to turn it over to Chris and Stephanie, and they are going to run Ag in a Classroom 101. So they're going to go through some stuff, and I'm going to turn it over to you guys.
All right, very good. Well, thanks for joining us here. Kevin said this morning he had the boring part. We had the exciting part. So we're going to do some interactive stuff with you guys this afternoon. If you would like to turn your camera on, if you're comfortable with that, and we can kind of see everybody doing the activities, great. If you don't want to turn your camera on, that's fine too, but open invitation if you want to do that. And then if you have questions and that kind of thing, if you unmute, that might be kind of a good cue for us. We can kind of see who's wanting to chime in. Please interrupt us if you have questions, either put it in the chat or feel free to just get us to stop for a second, and we're happy to walk through stuff and spend as much time as we need to on these things. your box was full of stuff. I'm not sure how it all shifted in transit. And so if you haven't already, as I'm kind of talking here, you may want to kind of try to lay out some things as best you can. We'll give you some time as we transition from each lesson. There's an orange paper in here. If you haven't yet gotten the things on there, if you'd like to do all the lessons, you'll need all those things. A couple of them are optional. You can get away with not having them, but they would make it a little bit easier for you. So that's there too, if you want to gather any of those materials. Also, all the lessons that we're going to do are we put into this Ag in the Classroom 101 booklet. And so if you want to follow along with the actual lesson plans, they are in there. They are in the order that we're going to do them in. We're not going to do, I don't think we have every single lesson in here. Actually, yeah, we have all but maybe one or two of the lessons in here that we're going to talk about here today. And so you should get a good introduction to some of the classic Ag in the Classroom lessons, as well as some new ones that we've come up here with in the last year and a half or so since Stephanie and I have been here. I'll also say, especially, those of you starting out, in many cases might be feeling a little bit out of your wheelhouse. As I said this morning, I came from a high school English background. There are very few lessons in this booklet that I would have been teaching, right? And so I had a pretty good ag background as well. But certainly, the majority of what we do is K through 8 lessons, and I didn't have that background. Stephanie has a really strong education and science background, but she'd be the first to admit didn't have a super strong ag background. We can learn these things, and you learn them pretty quickly. And so don't feel overwhelmed by that. There's a lot for all of us to learn, and luckily with education as well as with agriculture, there's a lot of resources out there to be able to do that. So hopefully today we'll give you some ideas as kind of a good starting place there. All right, so Stephanie is going to start us off, and she's going to do the apple blossom activity. And so I'll turn it over to her, and she can tell you what you need to get ready here.
All right, cool. So yes, the apple blossom activity, we're going to go ahead and do this one together. So what you're going to need is your green construction paper that has 2 tree tops on it. We sent you one brown construction paper square, that's the tree trunk. And then we have a little baggie that has some of these little red and green stickers. I guess we use them for like garage sales and stuff. And then there's a few other items in there. You're not going to use all of the items in this bag for apple blossom tree. This first one, the brass brads, and then there's a little green square of construction paper in there. That's going to be for a different activity. But everything else we will need. So before we get started, I do want to share, Chris and I have been working really hard to reformat all of our lessons into what you're seeing in the booklet. So in your binder, this is what all of our lessons are going to be formatted as. And so on the left-hand side, you'll notice that it'll say what grade level that this lesson is appropriate for, about how long it's going to take. Most of these activities are going to be anywhere between 30 to 45 minutes to typical just one class period. For some of the ones that are more geared towards junior high, they're going to be maybe 1 or 2 class periods, but you'll see that in there. It's got the objective, all of the materials you need, and then all of the standards. Now, we could list tons and tons of standards for a lot of these activities, but we highlighted some of the more prominent ones that we felt were the more important ones. And so as you listen to us, going through some of these activities and giving ideas on how you can even extend these lessons and different ideas, you'll start to notice everything that we do is cross-curricular. So this first lesson at the top left, it says science. It's just like the little badge that we have up there, that little symbol. But there's many ways that you can turn this into a social studies activity or a math activity or ELA. And then all of our lessons also include a teacher resources page, which is going to have extension ideas. It's going to list book ideas, lots of different things. And then we're trying to get pictures on all of them so that you can kind of see a final product. I know when I was a teacher, if we were doing some sort of activity or hands-on, I did like to see that final product, kind of like when you're cooking and you want to see what the final thing looks like so that you're not just going through it blindly. So we are working on getting pictures added, doing the activity, reformatting them into this structure. And I'm sure you guys have heard at some point we are in the works of getting a new website so that hopefully all of our lessons will be housed in one area. And it should be super organized and easy to get to. So with Apple Blossom Tree, what you're gonna do is you're gonna take your scissors and cut around the tree tops and the tree trunk. So this is a really good activity for kindergartners up through 3rd grade. You could even probably pull it off in a 4th grade class if you put a little bit more into it. I did this activity with my nieces last summer. They were in kindergarten and 4th grade, and they both enjoyed it. And it didn't really take them very long to cut out the shapes. When you're dealing with kindergartners, they don't have to necessarily cut right on the lines, and you don't necessarily have to use these exact templates. If you want to redraw a template that's more of just a circle, so it's easier for your younger kiddos to cut out, that's absolutely fine. These are just the templates that we've included in there that gives it kind of the, tree top shape. I'm just going to do this a little faster. We also do have a stop motion video that kind of goes through this, that if you wanted to share with teachers, if at any point in the school year, there's something where we have to go virtual again, we're trying to have more online resources for you to be able to share with those teachers. So this would be one of them. We have a video that goes along with this. All right. Trees. And so we have included the templates in this lesson. And like I said, you can draw your own templates if you'd like. We just printed them on construction paper. Obviously, it's a little bit more thicker than normal paper, and you can just automatically have the colors. If you wanted to turn it into an art project, you could print it on white cardstock or white construction paper, and then have the students, color their own trees and all of that. So once you get this cut out, what you're gonna do is you're gonna take your tree trunk and put some glue at the top of it. I'm gonna scoot my camera down so you guys can see this. So you can use, I just have a stick of glue, whatever works best in your class. We all know that regular liquid glue can get super messy. Even my 8th graders somehow didn't know how to use glue without getting it everywhere. So for kindergartners, it might be easier to use stick glue, but you put it right at the top, and then you're going to just attach that to one of the tree tops. And then you'll put glue on the other side of the tree trunk and on the tree leaves, and stick that other one, the other tree top, on there. So both of the tree tops have kind of sandwiched the tree trunk. Okay. So on one side, your little pink, you should probably have pink, white, maybe a darker pink. I only have light pink in this, but these are going to be your flowers, your blossoms for your apple tree. Okay, so you're just going to kind of chunk them up. They're supposed to look like little blossoms. You can do as many as you want. You can talk about with your students, the different parts of trees, that the apples come from the blossoms. That's where they grow from. You can definitely talk about pollination. So all I'm doing is I'm just putting glue down and then sticking the crumpled paper on there, the tissue paper. Definitely look at pictures of apple orchards and apple trees. What do they look like? You could even get little stickers or little like the foam stickers that have different pollinators, honeybees, bumblebees, butterflies, and that would give you a really awesome way to talk about pollination and how important pollination and pollinators are for apple orchards. You could also add some green apples on there to talk about, these are some of the younger fruits. When they first start growing, they're going to be green before they get their color. Now on this side, you're going to take your marker and you're going to write spring. And I did not leave myself enough room. So you can either write it straight down the trunk. I didn't leave myself enough room, so it looks kind of silly, or you could write it across. So this is our spring side. talk about what are the different seasons, what's happening in this life cycle of the apple at different times of the year. So then on the other side, you're going to add your red stickers, and those are going to be your red apples or your full grown apples. You could talk to your students about different varieties of apples. We have our awesome pumpkin and apple poster that we just created this past summer. So you could definitely have that hanging in your classroom. It could be a really awesome bulletin board idea. Talk about all the different varieties of apples. What do they look like? You could even do taste testing when it's appropriate in schools to start doing that kind of thing again, and start talking about, well, is one more tart? Is one more sweet? What is the texture like? All of that kind of stuff. And on our poster, it also talks about what they're appropriately used in. So like, are they better for applesauce? Are they better for baking? All of that kind of stuff. On this side, you're just going to label the trunk fall. So your students will see that there is a difference in the apple trees in the springtime versus the fall time. Okay, and you're talking about that life cycle and all of that fun stuff. You could take your students to an apple orchard and have them pick their own apples. You could make applesauce. You could definitely, if you're going to use this for a higher level, maybe 4th or 5th grade. I know in 5th and 6th grade social studies standards, we're looking at westward expansion. So you could talk about Johnny Appleseed, and we have an awesome book. I don't have it right behind me, but Apples to Oregon, and talking about people, you know, moving out west, and the people who brought fruits and vegetables in carts to, you know, plant where they settled. All sorts of fun stuff you can do with this. Super easy activity. It's fun. All of my dots fell off, so I'm sorry if yours are not sticky either. I don't know how long they've been in that box. But you could do lots of cool and fun little things, and it's just a cute little activity. Super fun, super simple and easy. A good way for you to start talking about stuff. You could have an apple, you know, our apple, oh my gosh, we took a virtual field trip to an apple orchard I think that was in the springtime already. And so you could definitely show that to them and see what an apple orchard looks like if you're not able to take them to an apple orchard. So lots of fun stuff to do there. Now, the next lesson in your binder is called Apple Chain. We're not going to do this one, but we included all of the templates that go along with it. And it's very similar to Connie's activity with the yarn. So you would basically print out the templates on different colored construction paper, and then either cut them out or have the students, you know, cut them out. Again, depending on the ability of your students and what they can handle. And then you're talking about a life cycle. It starts as a seed, and then what's the next step? Okay, so then you're going to need, it's going to grow into a tree, then the blossoms are going to form. You need pollinators to pollinate those blossoms so that you can have apples. And you're going to use red paper plates as the final product. And so you sandwich 2 paper plates and the chain comes out of there. So they can pull each thing one at a time, and they can, explain it to you. That's a way that you can assess their understanding. You could have them talk to their partners and have them pull it out one at a time, explain the life cycle, what's goes first. And we're talking about sequential order. And all of those, we're looking at ELA standards and science standards there. If you're using this with an older student, you could definitely even have them start writing down, this is a seed. So even starting with one word, seed, or the first step is seed, getting them to write out those full sentences. So there's a lot of different things that you can do with that. So do we have any questions about our first 2 apple activities? Pretty simple. So I think, Chris, you are going to talk next about 3D pumpkin.
Yep, and so the remaining things that are left in that baggie, there's 2 little brads and a green piece of paper, and then you should have these 3 little pieces of orange, these 3 strips of orange construction paper. If you want to grab those things. So while you're grabbing those, in case you didn't know, Illinois is by far the #1 producer of pumpkins in the nation. We grow, even the second place state, we grow double what the second place state grows. And so really important crop, particularly in the kind of northwestern part of the state, particularly that's where the Libby's plant is there in Morton, Illinois, known as the pumpkin capital of the world. Most of the pumpkins grown in Illinois are processing pumpkins, so they're not the jack-o'-lantern style pumpkins that maybe we're used to seeing decorating, although we grow a lot of those too. But by and large, most of the pumpkins are processing pumpkins, which do look different than what students think about, most people think about as pumpkins. So you've got these 3 strips of paper here, and we've got it in the lesson plan that we gave you. We've got them already, these pumpkin facts already printed on these sheets. And so this is another good example of how you could water down a lesson or kind of beef up a lesson to make it fit for different age levels. And so we've got a brand new pumpkin ag mag that we just released earlier this year that is also in your box there if you'd like to look at any of the ag mags as we talk about these activities. This would be a great little mini research project for maybe upper elementary students where they take that pumpkin ag mag, give them blank strips of paper, and ask them to identify 3 facts about pumpkins that they learned from the ag mag. For younger students, we can give them the facts and we can talk to them about that information. But again, a good way to kind of change that depending on what group of students that you're working with. All right, so to make your 3D pumpkin here, you're going to take your 3 strips of paper and you're going to fold them around so that the ends meet, and you're going to want to make sure that you have some overlap between them. And you don't have to be super exact here, but you do have to have an overlap there. Now, if you have a hole punch, this will be easier. It's possible to push the brads through, but it's definitely easier with the hole punch. So I'm going to go ahead and punch a hole through. And I'm going to take one of my brads and connect this into a loop. Okay, so you can see there. And then I'm going to go 180 degrees on the opposite side of that circle. I'm going to do the same thing and poke another hole. And again, connect with one of the brads. And I can tell I already left out a detail here. And so I forgot my green leaf. Stephanie's smiling. She realized it as I did it probably. So if you want, I'm going to go back. I'm going to put my green leaf on top of the pumpkin here where the 2 pieces came together. All right. So reattach that. Okay. So you can see we've got our pumpkin loop with our little leaf at the top. To make it into the 3D pumpkin, you're going to carefully start spinning these pieces of paper around. And we're going to form shape of our pumpkin. You see, you can kind of start pulling them around. And then our pumpkin facts become our 3D pumpkin. Pretty cute, right? So a good way to talk about some basic pumpkin facts, a good way to incorporate the pumpkin ag mag into classrooms as well. And a good way to again, talk about an important crop in Illinois that a lot of people don't necessarily think about as an important Illinois crop, or certainly as Illinois is the leader in the country by far. So good October lesson to bring into classrooms as well. Stephanie just talked about our apple chain lesson using the red paper plates. We have a similar pumpkin chain, same idea. You can pull the chain out and see all the different stages of the pumpkin lifestyle. There's another one that we do called What's Inside My Pumpkin. Again, using orange paper plates, and then you make a little book basically, and then you open it to the shell, you cut the border out, so you've got the shell of the pumpkin. The next one is you take some yellow and orange yarn and glue it in there, and those are the guts of the pumpkin basically, and then the next one you have the seeds glued onto the paper. And so again, they can kind of see the different plant parts that are inside that pumpkin. So lots of good pumpkin resources to utilize this time of year. There's also in your lesson booklet is our recipe for pumpkin pie in a bag. This is certainly a crowd pleaser, maybe a harder one to do right now in pandemic era, but I think as things go back to normal eventually, that's a great one to be able to serve some pumpkin pie in a bag. And again, talk about, you can literally have canned pumpkin that 9 times out of 10 came from Morton, Illinois. So it is an Illinois product. It's a local product that students can see how it's utilized. That's another good lesson to kind of talk about how we use different parts of different plants. So the different spices and seasonings that are part of pumpkin pie spice come from different parts of the plant. So that's a good way to bring in some of those plant part lessons there as well.
And I do want to add to that, like Chris was saying, we in the lesson, we have already given you a few different facts about pumpkins. You, for upper elementary, if your students, if you want to challenge them a little bit more, you could always give them a blank strip of orange paper and have them write down a fact, whether you're utilizing the pumpkin ag mag in the classroom, or if you or the teacher have taken them to a pumpkin patch and they picked out their pumpkins, have them ask questions. And then when they get back, they can write down that fact. And this activity also doubles as a really cute decoration that all parents love to get so many decorations from their parents to just put in a tub to, hand off to their students when, they graduate college and all of that. And you're like, why do I have all this stuff? So lots of different things that you can do with that, but there is that opportunity as well, just to keep it. Do we have any questions about pumpkins? All right.
This next one, it's going to be a little bit messier for this next one. So
Chris.
Stephanie's going to
Yes.
take care of that one.
Can I throw out one quick suggestion?
Yeah,
Yes.
sure.
Anytime you're doing something like that, especially food, send home a letter to the parents, tell them what you did in the classroom today with that recipe, because kids are always going to want to make it again, or many kids are going to want to make it again. And that's a good way to send something home so the families are learning along with you. So for me, like on that one, on one side is a bunch of pumpkin facts, on the other side is the pumpkin recipe, and the kids are excited they get to take it home and make it again.
Yeah, awesome suggestion. And actually we have, and we need to probably find somewhere to house these, and they'll definitely be on the new website once we get that up and going. But we do have all of our recipes written out. We did cooking challenges all last year. So all of those, pumpkin pie in a bag, butter, ice cream, all that stuff we've written out as actual recipes that have a different format. So there's that option as well. Yes, send stuff home with kids. That communication with parents is vital, as we all know. The next activity in your binder is called the Bees, Knees, and More. This is a really new, almost brand new activity that we created. And it just is looking at the anatomy of honeybees and using flashcards. So there's a labeled diagram of a honeybee. There's a blank diagram of a honeybee used as more of an assessment. And then all of the other things are flashcards in there in the shape of the honeycomb. So they're just, you can just print them front to back. In your book, they're not lined up exactly. It doesn't look like, although it should be. We might need to look at that formatting again. I'm not sure why they're not lined up, but for the most part, they're lined up. You can print them single side and put a yellow hexagon in between if you want to make it look a little bit more fancy. That's obviously going to depend on the time and effort that you want to put into it, but lots of flashcards with that. So our throw and grow activity goes along with pollinators and native plants. So what you're going to need is you have a little plastic jar with soil. We're not going to use all the soil, but you need some of the soil in there. There's a little baggie with a ball of modeling clay in there, or air dry clay. And then a little baggie with native wildflower seeds. So these are all native to Illinois. A really great activity to talk about what does it mean to talk about native species, and why is that important to keep native species in this area, and especially in terms of plants that we're talking about, and looking at, well, that provides the food for the insects and everything else that live in this area. And so then talking about that process of pollination and all that fun stuff. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna get this little ball of clay out. I'm gonna put my screen down. It's gonna get a little messy. So if you do want to put something down, we do have the wax paper in your box. You could tear a little piece off to use as a little placemat or a tablecloth. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna flatten out your clay. Now the clay that we have, it's a brownish color. You could use any of the air dry clay. It will break down and decompose into the ground. So you're gonna do that. You're gonna pour some seeds out on there, and then you're gonna pour a little bit of the soil on there.
I'll add to the soil that we put in your containers is really dry. So As you do this with students, it may be a little bit better to have a moisture potting soil that'll kind of stick to that clay a little bit better. And as you're doing it here, you can add water to it if that's helpful as well.
Get it, yeah, get it a little bit moist. You could definitely, if you, this lesson we wrote out, it says 2nd to 5th grade, but again, if you want to, if you're going into a upper elementary 5th, 6th, or even 7th grade classroom, I know most of us don't often go into the junior high classrooms, but this is a good way that you could start talking about variables. What are different types of clay that you could put in there? What are the different types of soil you could pot these into your classroom and watch them grow? How much light do they need to start growing? How much water do they need? All of that stuff. So once you kind of get it all rolled up into a fancy ball, mine's not working as well as Chris's.
I moistened my soil down, so that helped, yeah.
Yeah, so and that's another thing that you could talk about, the difference between the moist soil types, all of that stuff. And Chris used a paper plate, which was smarter than me, and my desk is a mess now. And so this is a really fun activity. You could also, if there is a designated area out on the school grounds that's appropriate for you guys to grow these wildflowers, you could have all the students stand in a line and toss them and see how far they can go into that area. To get out tape measures, measure that distance, take in consideration the wind, is that going to affect their toss? Probably not, because it's not that light of a thing, but all sorts of fun stuff that you could do, but especially talking about native plant species and our native pollinators, and why that's really important to make sure that we're not bringing in non-native plants that can potentially become invasive. So lots of things that you could talk about with your 2nd to 5th grade students, but also within your junior high students, if you're getting into those junior high classrooms. Or for our students, we all know there's a lot of different learning levels within just one classroom. So if you have students who finish and want a little bit more, give them some materials that might challenge them, have them look up some information about some of those more challenging, talking points. So that is our throw and grow activity, and it's going to go right along with the next activity that Chris is talking about when we're looking at seed germination.
All right, so the next one's Beanie Baby. This is a classic Ag in the Classroom lesson. It's been around a very long time. Again, as Stephanie noted, looking at seed germination. So if you want to kind of brush the dirt off your hands there, and let's see, you're going to need, you've got another little baggie that's got some soybeans and these white crystals in it, and then you got a piece of yarn. You're going to get those two things, and then if you've got a little bit of water, you're going to need a little bit of water for this activity also. What we should have done is done this first thing this morning and had you all, you could have been doing this up until the end of the day today, and we probably could have seen some seeds starting to germinate here. So the idea with this lesson is to try to help students understand what it takes for a seed to germinate. So, we do this a lot when we go to pre-services with college students, and we always ask, okay, tell us the things that seeds need in order to grow. And so, they'll say things like, well, it needs water, it needs soil, it needs sunlight. And so some of those things are true and others aren't necessarily true. And so we always use the example of when you're planting your garden, you take your hoe and you dig your furrow and you pop your seeds in there. And then the next thing you do is you cover those seeds up. So to germinate, those seeds don't need sunlight to do that. What's different? Well, they actually need warmth, right? Now to grow, eventually they need sunlight, but to get them to germinate, most seeds, not all seeds, but most seeds don't need any light at all. So it's a good way to kind of introduce some of those inquiry-based things to kind of get students thinking about what does it take for a seed to grow. So we use soybeans in here. It goes really well with the soybean ag mag. Obviously, soybeans are a really important crop in Illinois. It doesn't have to be soybeans. It just fits really well with being able to incorporate soybeans in. Large seeds are key for this because the idea is that as the seed starts to germinate in here, students are going to actually be able to see those different parts of the seed, and then you can have a whole other discussion about the different parts that are within that seed. The seed isn't necessarily one thing, it's full of a bunch of other things that allow that plant to grow. The powder in here is something called Soil Moist. This is another good ag connection. This is actually corn-based. It was invented by accident at a research facility in Peoria, Illinois, actually. it absorbs about 100 times its weight in water. So we got a couple prizes here. Let's see if anybody can guess. What's another household product that, at least at certain times of your life, you need something that absorbs a lot of water and doesn't let that water leak? Any guesses where else this product is used? Yeah, go ahead, Missy.
Diapers.
Diapers is correct. All right. All right. I got another copy of Slime King coming your way, Missy. All right. Very good.
Thanks.
This is the same stuff that is in diapers, or essentially the same stuff. It's a slightly different version of it. All right. And so again, it's bio-based, it's corn-based. And so another good discussion to incorporate another important Illinois crop in there as well. Okay, so you've got your soil moist in there, you've got a few soybeans in there, and then you're going to take just a little bit of water, and you don't need a ton because it's going to absorb it pretty quick, and you just really want to keep those seeds moist. So you can see there, my bag's not even halfway filled up. I'm going to push the air out, seal that bag up, and then within moments, you're going to be able to see that that's going to absorb all that water in there. So you should have got a bag that's got a hole in it above that seal. That above the seal is a really important detail there so that the stuff doesn't start leaking out on students. And so through that hole, you're going to take your yarn and you're going to place your yarn through the hole, and we're going to make a little necklace here. Hopefully your fingertips are more nimble than mine. All right. All right, so you string that through there. You're going to tie the ends to make a little necklace. And then the idea is that, okay, we talked about seed needs warmth in order to germinate. And so we're going to stick that inside our shirt, and the warmth of our body is going to be enough to get those seeds to start germinating. So a really cool activity, if you did this at the beginning of the day, students could wear it throughout the day, and by the end of the day, those seeds would be swelling up and in some cases starting to split open already. And then certainly by the next morning, we'd start to see some of these seeds germinating. So we've also we use little mailing labels, and it says, I'm germinating, ask me how. And so they stick that on their shirt. And so then they're walking around school, other students ask them what's going on, and then they can explain what seed germination means. And so we see time and again, the more students can be teachers themselves and regurgitate that information, the better they learn it as well when they're teaching somebody else. All right, so that's our beanie baby, right? Each student is going to create their own little beanie baby here. Again, with older students, you could throw in some variables here. Use different liquids, different quantities. Some kids could wear them. Some kids could put them outside in the middle of February. Some kids could set them by the heating vents in the classroom. Lots of different things you could do. You could test it in darkness or in the light. So lots of different ways to kind of figure out what it really does take to get seeds to grow. Well, also, we're not going to show it to you, but if you're interested in another resource, I believe it's on the Beanie Baby lesson plan and the extra resources. There's a TED Talk called Sitting on Soybeans, and it's with Debbie Molesky, who's a researcher with Ford Motor Company, and talks about how they're using bio-based, specifically soybean-based plastics in their vehicles. And so it's a really cool career-focused TED Talk. We usually show the first 3 or 4 minutes of it, and it's really good. She does a really nice job with it, and Ford's got a number of different things that go well with that. The Peggy Thomas book, Full of Beans, is another good one that goes well with this lesson as well. That's the story of how Henry Ford in the pre-World War II built a car using soybean plastic powered by biodiesel made from soybeans. And then once the war came, the idea kind of got put on hold and they never really got back to it again. And so that's a good one. Again, it's Full of Beans by Peggy Thomas. All right, so that's our Beanie Baby lesson. Yeah, go ahead, Stephanie.
I was going to say just a couple of things that I wanted to add is with the Sitting on Soybeans TED Talk that Chris just mentioned. Not only is that a good way to talk about careers, but also looking at you have Debbie and the rest of her team of researchers in the lab are all female in a more predominantly male-driven career. We're talking about science in the lab and with cars. So that's kind of a cool, that anybody can do anything no matter what. We're getting rid of those old standards of who can do what. And also in that video, if you wanted to use this for your upper elementary, junior high, I used to teach 8th grade science, and that was life sciences. So biology, plant life cycle, cells, all of that. You could definitely use it up to, 8th grade or even beyond that. But in that video, they also talk about byproducts. So that's a good way to introduce byproducts and waste. And Debbie and her team are looking into using even the stems, the peels, and seeds of tomatoes to create plastic for different equipment in the engine, like the little plastic caps, and so instead of using our typical plastic, and you can go into the process of how that's made with, petroleum-based plastics, and instead we're using byproducts from even a corporation like Heinz Ketchup, where they only use like the meaty part of the tomato and everything else gets thrown away. So what's happening to that? And instead of it going into landfills, we can actually create plastic with that kind of stuff. So really cool stuff to look at, byproducts and waste and all of that fun stuff. And with Beanie Baby, if you're using this in a 4th or 5th grade or even junior high, we did include student worksheets that we created last year to get the students. It's got all the procedures on there of what they need to do. You could start with a think, pair, share about all of this, and then you can have them watch it grow. And there's a diagram of a soybean plant, and then having them practice their observation skills, their measuring skills, collecting data and putting that in a chart. So lots of scientific terms that are really important for them to know. And I'm not going to lie, grade schools, they are not getting enough science. There was a huge push of math and English, and a lot of teachers have kind of pushed science to the side. And when I was teaching 8th grade science and 6th grade science, it was something that was very, very apparent, that basic measuring skills, collecting data, stuff like that, they're very below level on that. So really cool stuff that you can be doing with there. I'm just going to keep going. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat, or again, interrupt. And otherwise, I'll just kind of keep moving on. Our next activity is packing peanuts. We have a few different ways that you can do these activities. The one in the book is specifically looking at renewable versus non-renewable sources. And so the student activity on there, it's going to have them, you can talk about them, you can have them define it first before you introduce it. Could be an introductory, or just, if you've already talked about it, have them fill it in. You're sharing your ideas, and then they're going to do an observation. So we gave you a handful of the corn packing peanuts. For this activity, you would also want to have the styrofoam peanuts, and you're not telling them that these are corn-based peanuts. You're just giving them one of each. They need to write down their observations. So let's say this is packing peanut A. What does it look like? What does it feel like? And so we gave some different words above that chart. What's the color? What's the texture? Does it smell? You probably don't want to taste them, especially in today's world, but you're going to have some of those goofy kids who are inevitably going to taste them. And then they're going to do that with the styrofoam peanut, packing peanut B. And so they're just kind of, comparing, and that's a huge thing, not only in science, but also in social studies and English. We're comparing and contrasting. And then you're going to go into the experiment. So what you would do is you would have 2 cups, and you would put each packing peanut, one in one cup and one in the other. And then again, you're going to record your observations. What they're going to notice is that this packing peanut is going to start to disintegrate. It's going to start to break down. Well, what the heck? Why is this one breaking down, but not the next one? And then you can go into talking about how this is made from corn. It's safe to break down. It's safe for the environment. You could even eat it. I'm not going to eat it now because I just had dessert, so I'm kind of full, but you can eat these. And so there's lots of fun stuff. And then if you're going to do this exact experiment, we did include some QR codes, whether your students are allowed to pull out their cell phones, or if you have iPads or something in your classroom. And on the teacher resources page, it's going to explain where those QR codes are going to take you. So at each part of that scientific method, when you're doing your hypothesis, your observations, your experiment, and then the conclusion, they're going to scan that QR code at each step of this experiment. and it's going to take you to different websites or videos that give you a little bit more of an explanation. And then the very last one, the conclusion, it's going to talk about styrofoam and what styrofoam is made of. It's going to go into a little bit more of the chemistry part and talking about polymers and how those take long time to break down and how it's, bad for our environment and all that kind of stuff. So lots of cool discussions you can have with this, lots of things that you can do with this. You could even talk about the pros and cons of using the corn packing peanuts. Like if it was a rainy day and I wasn't at home to get my Amazon package and the cardboard got wet, is this going to make all the packing peanuts then disintegrate and make a mess inside the box? Or, all sorts of conversation that you can get out of this. Another activity that you could do with this is create some art. If you're looking at, our younger elementary students, kindergarten through third grade, because they do disintegrate, you can have them create a little piece of art. And so you can just lick the ends and stick them together and they'll stick together. And you can say, hey, let's make a barn, create a barn, and you give them all these different packing peanuts. You can say, create your favorite livestock animal or your barnyard animal. And I made mine. Obviously, it's a horse. I know all of you knew exactly what it was just by looking at it. So you could say, oh, this is my horse. It looks exactly like it. So lots of fun things that you can do with the packing peanuts, talking about, the same concepts, but at a much younger level, but kind of fun thing that you can do with that. And then we also have one where you could make the actual packing peanut, but you don't really get much out of it, but it might be fun for your junior high or upper elementary students to do. So a lot of things that you can do with the packing peanuts. The next activity in your binder is called Ag Venture with Corn. Now we have a series of these Ag Ventures and they pair with our Ag Mags. So this specific one is going to pair with the Corn Ag Mag. They are all multidisciplinary and they're going to have a variety of different activities, whether it's matching or writing a short paragraph or a few sentences. I've tried to also include something fun in each of them. On the corn one, you can see that there's actually a crossword. And so they're using their Ag Mags to answer the questions in here. So everything from the Ag Ventures are in the Ag Mags. And again, you saw this morning that those Ag Mags are online. And so if you don't have paper copies, or if we do go into back into a virtual world with teaching, this is definitely something that you could send to the teacher. And then they have that online resource that they could just link into their Google Classroom or whatever platform they're using to get that information to their students. Super easy. They have it right there. It looks like we have a question. Are there more Ag Ventures? There are. We have Ag Ventures for almost all of our Ag Mags, and they're on our blog. There is a, Chris, do you want to put or actually, while you're doing Bake It Blackout Poetry, I will put the link in there.
Sure,
So
yeah,
I'll give you.
It's on the coordinators tab. Yep.
Okay.
On the blog. Yep.
So on the blog, I'll put the link in the chat, but if you go to our blog page, the www.beyondthebarndoor.wordpress.com and click on the coordinator link, it's right in there. It'll say Ag Ventures. All of them that are completed as of now are on there. And then the last 4 seasons, nutrition, pizza, and urban, we are currently working on right now. So those will be up as soon as Chris edits my work and make sure that my math is correct, because we know that I'm bad at basic math. So those will be up there as soon as we get those edited and ready. And they all include the keys too.
I'll add to Stephanie's thoughts too, that we created all these during the pandemic, and part of our thought was that if coordinators weren't able to get into classrooms, what could we do to provide resources that they could send home or send to teachers more easily? And so a lot of coordinators around the state have been doing, they call them Ag Bags. And basically, if they can't go into the classroom, they can still send materials in and still create some opportunities for them. So this would be a really great one to use and kind of have in your back pocket if you know there's a place that you maybe can't get into, but would like to send them some resources, even if it's something they could just take home. This is a great one. I think I oftentimes will tell teachers too, this is a great one. If you know you're doing an ag related lesson that week and you're going to have a sub, this is the perfect thing to leave with the sub, that you got an ag mag, you got the ag venture, and it's pretty cut and dry. So there's a lot of potential there and a good resource to share with teachers for sure. Yeah.
Chris, do you want me to talk about rumination real quick?
Yeah, why
before
don't you? Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So rumination navigation is again one of our newer lessons that we finalized in the springtime and talked at the February coordinator meeting. But basically, this is to talk about digestion of ruminant animals. And ruminants are those that have the stomachs with multiple chambers, so the 4 chambers within their stomach. And so again, I think we labeled this for the 6th grade, but this is definitely something that I would teach in my 8th grade classroom. And actually this activity, for those of you, I'm not sure if any of you guys were here in February, but this is actually the reason, the only reason that I was hired. And now I'm worried for my position now that I've created the lesson. I'm just kidding. That's a joke. But so basically they're making poop. And I did this with my 8th graders, but for human digestion, because we were learning about the different systems, organ systems and everything. So with rumination, it's super fun. The student worksheet is going to start off with number 1, 2, and 3, and it kind of goes through. First, check and make sure you have all the materials. Then you're going to label the materials correctly. And then you're going to get some of those materials filled with some of the items that they need so that they're ready for when you get to that part. The actual directions for all of the steps of going through this process are the next 2 sheets, page 43 and 44. And I designed it to kind of look like a game board. We all know, even as adults here, whenever I do presentations, I try to, say, oh, well, being a student, but let's be real, even as an adult, if you have a boring worksheet, we're like, we don't want to do this. It's really boring and it makes it less interesting. So if it has a little bit of flow and some fun, somehow it makes it even more fun, even though it could be exactly the same information. So they're just going to go through, follow the little bubbles all around. There's a little bit of information that goes in there that kind of explains what's happening at each stage, but then it also gives you the directions on what they need to be doing. And so in the end, when they get to the very end, it's going to, you're going to have a little tiny turd, which is super fun. I think it's fun. And I know my 8th graders had a blast doing it, and we just used bread. It was just the normal digestive system. So this is a little bit more. You could have your students split up into groups. They could have different jobs. One person could read the directions. One person could, handle the materials. One person could do the measuring, or you can have them just work in simple partners. It just depends on, your materials and supplies and your budget, or how mature your students are and how able they are to kind of use these materials. There's also the last page of the student worksheet goes through and has some questions. And then there also is a nonfiction text. It's called Move and On Through, that you could also pair with this, that gives more information about the process of rumination, what's happening at each stage. So lots of fun stuff that you can do with that, but you get a little turd out of it, and it's pretty funny.
I'll also say, so we did the corn packing peanuts and the ruminations, and I'll give you a little sneak peek to next week at the full coordinator meeting next Tuesday. Our intern from 2 summers ago has been doing some work with her professor at U of I, and they have a series of lessons that they're going to show us, and they have a corn packing peanut lesson. It's similar to what we do, but it's kind of on steroids. It's a much more in-depth lesson. And then they have an alternative to Stephanie's rumination, where they look at the chambers of the ruminant digestive, the ruminant stomach using Play-Doh. And so you'll get a couple different ideas on ways to incorporate both the packing peanuts and some ruminant digestive stuff here in the next 2 weeks. All right, I think we're ready to move on to bacon blackout poetry. And so you've got this stack of ag mags in there. If you go towards the back of that pile there, you should find a pork ag mag. I know Kevin talked this morning about how to order ag mags from us and how to go about that process. Many of our ag mags are on a multi-year cycle, so we get 2 to 3 years out of them, and then we start the process all over again and update them, redo them, and then occasionally we get additional funding and opportunities to add some new ag mags in different years as well. And so we're looking to we have not gonna tell you much more yet, but we're pretty excited about a new one we're gonna have next year. So stay tuned for that. I told you before, I come from an English background, and so I've tried to sneak some poetry stuff in to a few of the lessons here. And so we're going to do Bacon blackout poetry. And so blackout poetry is something that it works really, really well with all of our ag mags because they have so many short paragraphs and short sections within them. But you can literally do blackout poetry with any text. As a teacher, I even took entire short stories and had students create poems from a full-length short story. So the idea is that you're going to have a Sharpie marker or any kind of dark marker, and you're going to do just what the name suggests. You're going to black out words from your original source. So the idea is that you choose words from another author, and you are going to create a poem by taking away words from that and then creating a poem out of the words that are left over. So I'll give you an example. In your binder here, if you would turn to it's page 48, page 48 in your binder. So we've recopied on the third page of the Pork Ag Mag, there's a section called Farmers and the Environment. And so we just recopied that text on there so you can kind of see how many words are in that original text there on page 48. And then all I did was I took a marker and I blacked out the words I didn't want to use. And this is something with students, especially students doing this for the first time, maybe have them black out with pencil, something where they can kind of undo mistakes and kind of get used to it. But once you've done 1 or 2 of these, it's pretty intuitive. You can do it pretty quickly and pretty easily. And so the poem that I created below there called Pig Manure is it's really the height of my career, writing poems about pig manure. I'm really there now.
I was just gonna say we both just talked about poop, so
well, we didn't want that to be the first or last impression today, so we had to kind of bury it in the middle. Here, yeah. So I just took the words in order, the words that were left over from that section, and I rearranged them. I chose where to start a new line, where to start a new stanza. So there's lots of opportunities to talk about some just super basic poetic elements. And then I also added punctuation in there as well. So again, another good way for you or for a teacher to talk about different punctuation, what it means, and what it can add to a poem. And so these are literally the same words. I just pulled out the words I didn't want and created a poem from it. The neat thing about using blackout poetry is that, if you take an ag mag into a classroom and you ask students to read a section of it and then say, okay, now I want you to summarize what you just read in a paragraph, you're going to get 25 kids rolling their eyes at you, not wanting to do it, right? They get asked to do that all the time. They don't want to do that. Well, essentially, my poem is basically a summary of that section. It's basically what I did. I pulled out the most important information from it and made a poem about it. So you're still doing the same skill. You're still practicing the same skill with students, but you're doing it in a way that they aren't expecting and is new to them. And so it's a lot more exciting, and they can feel like they truly created something when really we're practicing some of those basic summarizing skills while also throwing in some basic poetry stuff in there as well. So we did this with the Pork Ag Mag. Pork's an important industry in Illinois. We're the #4 pork producer, so we thought it was a good way to incorporate that Ag Mag. Again, you could do it with any of our Ag Mags. Any of our readers, if you're not familiar with those are also on our website. They're called Terra Nova/Ag Readers. We have a ton of those as well. All those would work well to do a blackout poetry type lesson. Some variations, you can make it, so I did it where I used the words in order. You could use it so the students could, I've done it where the students wrote down the words on note cards, and then they can move them around on their desk, and so they can create a poem just using the words as like a big word jumble and create something brand new. Lots of different ways that you could do that. So again, a good way to bring in some nonfiction reading, a good way to incorporate our ag mags. They can learn about the ag topic, but also learn a new way to kind of share that information with others, basically. And I think too, if you did it with multiple parts of the ag mag, students wrote poems and they shared them, then they're going to be learning things from all the different parts of the ag mag. Even if they didn't read those as closely as they did their section, they're still going to learn that information as well. So a good way to kind of sneak in some poetry and also sneak in some nonfiction comprehension and literacy skills there as well. All right, so that's our bacon blackout poetry. Stephanie, why don't you, before I go to wheat mowing, why don't you talk about the embryology stuff that you came up with?
Yeah. So I do want to ask a question for another prize. Does anybody know how many days it takes for once the egg is starting to incubate for it to hatch into a chick? Does anybody know how many days? Kylie?
28.
Not 28, but we're close.
21.
21. So Candace, I think that was you who said that it is 21. So we'll go ahead. Thank you so much. It's 21 days. On that 21st day is typically when the chick is hatching out of its shell. So all of you guys got a little a sheet that has little eggs and all of the different what's happening in embryology each day. Each egg is labeled one, and there's 20 because on the 21st day is when it's going to hatch. And everybody also got a little Easter egg, and you can find these on Amazon. If you want to use the colored Easter eggs, that's fine. We bought them white so that it was more accurate to what typically the egg color is, and you can definitely talk about different color eggs and different hen breeds and or chicken breeds and all of that kind of stuff. So the point of this is that what you would do is you would print these back to back. Now we printed them on cardstock, so it's a little thicker. We printed them in color so that you could see all of the different parts. It's a little bit harder to do that in black and white. And if you notice on page, what is this, 49, on the left-hand side at the bottom, it's going to tell you that in order to print them so that they're lined up, you need to put on your computer settings to flip the sheets on the short edge so that they line up with the facts on the back. So you have not only the picture of what's happening inside the egg on each day, but you have some information of what, written information of what's going on. Now, there's obviously a lot more happening, but we limited it to things that were mostly understandable to students. Now, there's going to be words in here like germinal disc that some students aren't going to know, and that is fine. You don't have to define every single word, but just the idea that they are hearing these words and they're getting an idea that different parts of the body and all of the parts of it are developing at different stages. It doesn't just happen at once. And so you're introducing embryology. Now, the reason we made this activity is because, again, during quarantine, many teachers were unable to actually incubate eggs in their classroom and go through that. And so we wanted to provide something that might be easy to show students. And even if you are in the classroom, but you don't have an incubator, you don't want to, go through all of that, or maybe you don't have the funds for it, you could definitely use this in place. And so basically what you do is you cut out the egg and you put each number within the egg so that students then can open up the egg. You can label the eggs on the outside. So it could take maybe 15 minutes. You could do it as a bell ringer. You could have them write down, what is actually happening? What's the difference between what you're seeing? For the first few days, they might say, well, I don't really see that much of a difference. And they might just copy down what they're seeing on the back, which is fine. It's fine for them to copy it because some of the words they're not familiar with. But putting that pencil to paper, it's one more way for them to help understand or remember that information. So they're opening it up and they're actually seeing it. This is very similar to kind of what you would do with candling. And Chris did an awesome series at the very beginning of quarantine during our everyday ag stuff where he and his son raised chickens, and they made videos that talked about all the different the embryology, candling. There's episodes on all sorts of different things so that you could definitely use that in the classroom. Have them make their observations, play the videos. They're very short, and that's how you're talking about embryology. And Chris still has all of the chickens today, and he made a chicken coop and all of that fun stuff, which is actually hilarious, and they are the cutest little things ever. But that's our embryology activity. Whether you're using incubators in the classroom, you could pair it with that instead of candling, or you could use it in place of that. So, and then you could get an egg container And then you could hand them out to different groups of students. You could have just one set, however you want to do it or what's appropriate for you guys. I know that you're only in the classroom for a certain amount of time and for a certain amount of days. And so however you can get the resources together that's easiest for you to get in and out of the classroom is gonna, be the best thing.
They're not as cute when you have to clean out the chicken coop, Stephanie, but that's all right. All right, we're gonna take a break, give you guys a break here. So let's come back at 2:30. So give you about 12 minutes here. So stretch your legs, get a drink, relax, and then we'll leave this up and just come back at 2:30, and then we'll continue with the second half of our lessons at that point. If any of you have questions, comments, feel free in the meantime, put them in the chat or then chime in once we get back here at 2:30. All right, we'll see you then. All right, it's 2:30, so if you haven't moseyed on back to your computer, take a minute and do that. We did have someone in the chat, if you haven't seen it yet, gave a good suggestion for the Magic Noodles Company that has a lot of corn-based packing peanuts that are different colors. So there's another resource for you. We get our packing peanuts from Uline. You can literally get a bag the size of a compact car. It will last you for a very long time. They're not terribly expensive. I think you'll probably pay more in shipping than you actually do for the actual packing peanuts themselves. But Uline, ULINE, that's another great company for that. I'll also say that in all of the digital versions of our lessons, all the hyperlinks we have a number of those set up for any kind of product that teachers would have to buy or you would have to buy. We have links in there for where to find them. And so that's just something else to know about. You've got the paper versions obviously in your binder, but all the lessons in there are also on our website and on our blog. As Kevin mentioned this morning, we're in the midst of getting a new website. It's going to be 100 times easier to find our stuff once we have our new website. So we are very, very anxiously awaiting that. And so that's going to be really nice for both teachers and coordinators alike to be able to access that stuff a little bit easier. So keep that in mind. And if you have questions on, hey, where do I find this stuff? Let us know, because we buy it by the wagon load in a lot of cases. So we can steer you in the right direction with that. So, all right. We're going to talk next about wheat milling. So if you want to turn to that section in the binder, it's going to be page 53 if you're following along in the binder. And then you've got a couple wheat heads in a bag here. So if you want to grab those wheat heads, we're going to make a little bit of a mess here again. Again, these wheat heads, depending on where in the state you are, they're pretty easily available just from local farmers, especially in the southern part of the state. We have another number of resources linked on our lesson plan on where you can get classroom packs of these little wheat heads as well. Again, you can get a big bag for pretty inexpensive. So when we talk about wheat, this is a really great way to also talk about harvesting as well. And we're here in central Illinois. I yesterday started seeing some combines opening some fields up here around here just this week. And so I got another copy of Slime King here, so I'll offer another prize chance here. So the combine combines the work of what three machines? Combine combines the work of what three? So what three processes is the combine doing when it's harvesting? The hard one. Anybody have one of the processes that a combine does?
Is it called like threshing or thrashing?
Okay, yep, threshing's one of them. Yep. Who is that? Is that Kylie?
Kelsey.
Kelsey. Okay, we got Kelsey, we got threshing. All right, what else?
I know. Does it start with a W?
Yeah.
And I can't think of what it's called.
Anybody else want to chime in here?
It ends in ing. I know that. Is it like?
So we've got.
I just made a
threshing.
crossword puzzle about this for our farmer, and I can't think of it. It's like a T, a W, and then shoot, I'm drawing a huge blank. But
You're right there, Kelsey. Yeah. So you're gonna smack yourself here. So it's threshing, reaping,
Winnowing?
and winnowing.
I got it. I got
Yeah,
winnowing.
there you go. Yeah. So another nice kind of connection there when we think about what words mean, right? People might wonder, why is it called a combine? Well, it combines the work of all those three. Used to be three different machines. Now they're combined into one. So winnowing, threshing, and reaping are the three processes there. All right. So you've got our wheat ag mag. So Illinois, as I said before, Illinois typically grows more wheat in the southern part of the state. Slightly longer growing season there allows farmers to harvest their wheat, cut some straw, and then still have time to plant a short season soybean plant, typically to follow up so they can double crop on those fields. So don't see that nearly as often in the central and northern part of the state, but still do a little bit here. If you're looking for a book suggestion, especially upper elementary, middle school level, one of my absolute favorite books, The Thing About Luck by Cynthia Katahota. It's about a family of migrant laborers who travel throughout the West to combine wheat. The family is Asian. The brother, it's told from the perspective of the sister. The brother is never comes out and says it, but the brother is most likely on the spectrum, and so there's some challenges that come with that. Really, really good book, great book on its own merits, but it also a really good, accurate ag book as well. So if you're looking for a nice fall read, this is one for sure. So The Thing About Luck. All right, so if we want to talk to students about wheat and what's involved in the wheat plants, you've got a couple of these wheat heads here. And so what I'm going to ask you to do, don't do this right over your keyboard. I've made that mistake before. So I'll pan down here. So you're going to take that wheat head and you're just going to crush it in your hands. And you're going to see it's going to divide out into a few different parts. And there's some great diagrams in our wheat ag mag that show the different parts of the wheat plant. Again, I think a lot of students don't really understand, this idea that we eat different parts of different plants. Different parts are used for different things. So wheat's an interesting one where we eat the wheat kernels here, but then we're also using the stalk as straw for bedding for animals, right? So a great way to talk about that as well. And so if you start to kind of divide out this mesh you've made, you should be able to start pulling out these wheat kernels. So this would be a good counting activity. You could get a class average of how many kernels per wheat head on average. You could calculate that out to figure out how many plants per acre, how many pounds you'd get. I mean, there's all sorts of math stuff that you could do with that. What we like to do is a grinding activity. And so we have these little $5 pepper grinders that you can find anywhere. And so I've got a few wheat kernels inside this pepper grinder here. And so you can see as I start to grind it, it's pretty rustic grind. It's not super fine. So I'll give an easier question here. Essentially, what am I making here on my paper plate here? As I grind these wheat kernels, what am I making?
Flour.
Be more specific.
Wheat flour.
Yeah, whole wheat flour. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so, something that's really cool for students to better understand this idea of where we actually get flour from, right? And a good way to kind of talk about all the things that flour is used in. There's some great social studies connections with flour. Every civilization throughout time has had some version of making some sort of bread, right? So it's such a foundational thing to human civilization. So a lot of great opportunities there to talk about wheat. In the Ag Mag also talks about the different types of wheat that are grown throughout the country. In Illinois here, we typically don't grow a lot of wheat that would be used for baking bread, but more used in cake mixes and cookie mixes and things like that. And so you can talk about different varieties and different purposes for the different types of wheat as well. So again, a fun, interactive one for students to kind of better understand, even something as simply as just grinding them up. Now I did it. I sprayed flour everywhere. Something as simple as grinding up those wheat kernels can produce the product that they are familiar with. All right, so that is our wheat milling activity. Again, Wheat Ag Mag is very good, has a lot of great information there as well. All right, so we're going to transition to a lower level elementary lesson that deals with dairy.
All right, that is me. We are moving on to Moo Mask. And so this is a really fun activity to do with your younger students, lower elementary. I think we have it labeled K through 2. You could definitely do this at 3rd grade as well. And so what you're going to need is 1 dinner size paper plate and then 2 of the dessert size paper plates. And we also included a little ear tag. In addition, you're going to need scissors to cut your ear tag, a black marker, and the best thing that works is going to be a stapler. But again, when you go into the classroom, you will find what works best for you and for your kiddos that you're doing this activity with. So the first thing that you're going to do, let's go ahead and cut our ear tags just to get that done. This is just a very basic shape of an ear tag. You could definitely look into what do actual cow ear tags look like, the shapes of them, what are the ear tags used for, and then I'll talk about the ear tag here in just a little bit. So we're going to move on to the paper plates. You're going to take 1 of your dinner size paper plates and you're just going to cut it in half. Okay, so you should have 2 halves. All right, now your other dinner or your other dessert plate is going to be the face. And then your larger dinner plate is going to kind of be like the lower part of the cow, like the snout area. You could, if you wanted, to fold this and cut eyes out of that. Or if you want to just, well, we're not going to do that right now. You could just draw the eyes on there. But what you're going to do is you are going to put the one dinner plate with one dessert plate, and you're just going to staple those together. Okay, again, like I said, this is going to be dependent on the age of your students, you know, the materials that you have. Those little mini staplers, they're pretty cheap, and you could just buy a whole bunch and take those in and hand them out to the students so that they each have one to staple together. Then you're going to take your ear. The half plates are going to be your ears. So you're going to staple one on one side of the head and one on the other side. So again, we're looking at anatomy, animal anatomy. We're looking at a dairy cow. So you can talk about the different breeds of dairy cows, what they look like, the differences between a dairy cow and a beef, the beef cattle. So we have, pretty close here, we have this kind of shape. Okay, now again, before you staple it all together, if you wanted to fold the paper plate and put the eyes right there, cut out the eyes, that's fine. Otherwise, you can just draw your face. I'm gonna put this down like that. I'm gonna go ahead and draw a couple eyes because we have all mammals. We're looking at this as a mammal. Cows have two eyes. They have their two ears, and they're gonna have the nose. So down on the bigger paper plate, you're gonna draw a nose, and then they're going to have a mouth. So mine is smiling because he's happy. And then you're going to look at the different breeds. So for basic dairy cow that we're most familiar with, we're going to just draw the classic black spots. Okay, you could also bring in some of our different terminologies, like what is a heifer? We're looking at a calf. Is there a difference between a cow that has had babies versus one that hasn't? Is there a difference between the names of male versus females within that species? All of these different terms that you could talk about. You could definitely start talking about, well, if this is a dairy cow, they're obviously producing milk, but what are other dairy products that these cows that we use their milk for? Getting into yogurt and cheeses, ice cream, butter, all of those different products that we use because of our dairy cows. Okay. Now, if you actually wanted to use this as a mask, you would definitely need to cut out the eyes, and then you could put some yarn or tape, and then they could wear it around, and you could have them even do a skit or a play, or just wear them and have some fun. So depending on how you want to do. Now, you can also hang these up as decorations within the classroom or out in the hallway to show off your students' work and their artwork. They could color their cows different colors. You could have them look at different breeds of cows and then design their cow based off that. You could use different colors if you wanted to make it some sort of glyph, meaning the different colors represent different parts of you. So you could say, you put a green spot on the left ear if you have a dog, and a blue spot on the left ear if you have a cat, or, you could do siblings, favorite foods, all sorts of stuff. And then it's kind of unique to them. They could share and they could say, oh, you have a blue spot on the left ear, so you must also have a cat. What's your cat's name? Cool activity to help students engage with each other, become friends, figure out the similarities and differences, between each other, help them feel more comfortable in the classroom, along with teaching them about agriculture and the different dairy products from our dairy cows. So lots of different things that you could do with just a simple little activity like this. Very cheap. You can go to the dollar store and get paper plates. It doesn't have to be the most expensive. And then with the ear tag. So we're talking about, well, how do we know that these cows are ours, or how do they keep track of the cows? Do they give them names? All this. Well, no, they tag them and they have numbers. So there's a few different ways that you could do the numbers. So you could do a 4-digit birthday. So my birthday, I'm going to just write on here. So my birthday is March 28th. So I wrote 0328. And then I'm going to connect that to the ear. They put the cow tags on their ears, so you can look at pictures of that and see where they're placed, talk all about that. And then what you could do is, okay, everybody, we're gonna put these numbers in order from smallest to largest. How can we do that? So you can have them line up and figure out, okay, so if I'm 0328 and you're 0410, you're going to go after me because that would be April, or it starts with 04. 4 is higher than 3. And so you're having them line up. You could have them do it the first time. You could have them try, for your older students, you could have them try doing it without actually speaking and just by, motioning or looking at numbers. You could time them and make it kind of a fun competition to see how quickly they can do it. You could even do these numbers differently. If you wanted to take the example in your guys's binder, talks about the letters in their first and last name. And so some, like my name has 9 letters in my first name, 10 in the second name, with a total of 19. So I would have a 5-digit tag instead of a 4-digit tag, because then it would be, well, I could leave off the 9, but it would be 91019. So that would be my number of my tag if I use the number of letters in my name. So lots of different ways that you could do this. You can get creative. It could connect with something that you're learning in a different class, or anything like that. So endless options, but fun stuff. Again, sequencing, putting numbers in order, all of that, math standards, ELA standards, all of that, communication, working together, lots of skills that you can get out of this. So that is our MooMask activity.
Stephanie, you bring up a good point there too, that, our role is to increase ag literacy with students, but if we can do that in a way where we're also echoing and reinforcing the math literacy or the science literacy or the reading literacy that teachers are doing, I mean, they're going to want us to come back more and more if they can see that we're also reinforcing those concepts as well. And so keep that in mind. If there's ways that, obviously our focus is on the ag, but that doesn't mean that we can't also provide some resources in some of those other content areas too. So that's one good example of how we can do that. So, all right, the next lesson in your booklet here is milk plastic. And so this was not really one we could do interactively here today, but I've got some examples of it. And so you can see it's on page 59 of your booklet. And essentially what you're going to do is you're going to warm up 1 cup of milk, and you're going to add 4 tablespoons of white vinegar and stir it up. And it's going to separate what's called the casein protein. And I just used cookie cutters, and I took that warm, basically a cheese curd essentially, pushed it in the cookie cutters, and you can see I made these almost a year ago. They're still rock hard. And so it's a really cool way to make technically it's a polymer. It's similar in construction to a plastic out of milk, just using milk and vinegar. These could be, you could drill a hole in these. They can make a necklace. They can make an ornament for the holidays. I mean, there's lots of different ways that they could kind of make this into a make and take. You can also add food coloring to the milk, and so it would actually make a colored plastic. This is also a really good inquiry-based activity where, we could try different types of milk. Does whole milk have more of this casein protein than skim milk? What if we tried apple cider vinegar as opposed to white vinegar? And so lots of different variables that we can do there. You can warm the milk up in a microwave. I've heard of people doing it even with an electric tea kettle. So if you're trying to be safe with younger students, there's lots of different ways to still be able to do that and give them a chance to kind of work with that milk plastic. I've also seen people use the silicone, like ice cube trays, come in all different shapes and sizes. And so there's some that they can make them look like little Lego characters and all sorts of things. So lots of different variations with that. Again, could be a cute make and take activity. Could also be more of a STEM or inquiry-based activity as well. Another resource I'll point out that is not linked in the teacher resources on these, but if you're doing anything with dairy, I really like it's whereismymilkfrom.com. It went away for a little bit this year, and then somebody bought the website and brought it back. And so again, it's whereismymilkfrom.com. Maybe Stephanie, if you don't mind putting that in the chat. Yeah. All milk has a code on it, and so you can type in that. It's typically a 5-digit code, and allows you to see where what dairy that milk came from. And so it's a really cool way to talk about supply chain. In a lot of cases, milk is the #1 local product that students would be potentially consuming at school. So it's a really great way to talk about where that milk comes from. And it's interesting too, because based on how our supply chain works, if they take their little milk chugs from the lunchroom and bring them into the classroom and you're there, the kid they were sitting next to in the lunchroom might have milk that looks identical to what they were drinking, but it came from a totally different location. And so it's a good way to kind of talk about how, based on our supply chain and how foods get to us, it's more complicated than a lot of us realize. And so even with younger students, that's a really great way to introduce that and show that. And so it's a simple website. It shows you where it was processed. It shows you what other things they make at that facility. We typically, when we do it, we will intentionally buy a couple of different brands of milk and show where they come from all different places. And so, like, for instance, I'll always try to find an organic milk because typically those are coming out of New York. And so you can kind of see how this stuff is shipped around and how it gets to us basically. So yeah, really cool activity. Another thing that's kind of interesting that students don't think about and adults don't think about either. Typically we think of milk as brands of milk, but we have a Prairie Farms plant here in Peoria. When they're done bottling the Prairie Farms milk, they're going to have contracts with other companies to bottle their milk as well. And so it's a homogenized product, right? And so we think of that brand and we want to buy that specific brand, but oftentimes the brand is marketing. It's not necessarily a different product. And so that's kind of something else that's interesting for students to learn more about too with milk. All right, so there's 3 different milk things that you can do. We're going to go on to an environmental one with Wada Watershed. This pairs really well. We have I really like the new water ag mag that we have. It's probably the second to last one in your pile of ag mags there. Lots of great stuff there with Waters of Illinois. We've got some pretty interesting water transportation here in Illinois too, with the locks and dams. And so this is a great connection to make with, especially with our corn and soybeans, but also a number of other commodities that are shipped up and down the river. And so Illinois is pretty unique in our access to that river to be able to ship things down and out of the country very, very efficiently compared to some other places in the world. So Wada Watershed, you've got 2 things in your box that would go with this. So we gave you a map of the watersheds of Illinois, and then we gave you a piece of wax paper. So if you want to get both of those things out, depending on what part of the state you're in, it may be the concept of a watershed might be more obvious to students, right? Where we are here in the central part of the state, it's pretty stinking flat. And so for a lot of students, they're not really thinking about this idea of water flowing somewhere. They think it's flat, where it's not going anywhere. And so using this map, it's a great way to kind of show them, even no matter what your geography is, there's still little hills and valleys and slopes that water is flowing. And so we need to be thinking about where that water is going and what impact we're having on our downstream neighbors. So lots of great environmental connections we can make with that. And you can kind of talk to students about the importance of maintaining and better understanding our watersheds. So one way to illustrate that is using our wax paper here. And so you could have students, like if I just take my map and crumple it up and then undo it, even if I flatten it out, you can get the idea that there's still some, gives us kind of a topographical map here, right? And so we could see if we added some water to this, it would kind of flow down to some of those lower places. We like to use wax paper because it's got that wax layer on it. And so it's a little bit easier to do this. So I'm going to crumple this up. I'm going to do it down here so I'm not so loud in my speaker. So again, lots of different ways you could do this. If we're out in Utah, our watershed is going to look more like this, right? But in Illinois, it's going to be relatively flat. So you can also take water soluble markers, right? So just like Crayola markers, and I can draw on my watershed map here, right? And so maybe right here is a construction site where when it rains, they haven't really set up any erosion control, and there's going to be a lot of soil and other things that are going to flow out of there. Maybe over here, we've got the dog park, and people haven't been cleaning up their dog doo-doo very well, right? Maybe over here is somebody who's been putting a lot of chemicals on their yard and they aren't really reading the label and aren't applying those chemicals correctly. And so we have our watershed here. I'll try to show this as best I can without shorting out my computer. So if I take a little spray bottle, and this bottle actually has some dye in the water. You don't have to do it that way, but it does allow you to kind of see a little bit better See if I can get a view here where you can see it. So you can see as I spray it, it makes those colors run and you can see where the water is going to pool up in there. So it's a really great visual so they can better understand. Even in a relatively flat place like Illinois, we still have these watersheds. They're still really important to our ecosystems, and farmers, consumers, everybody has a role in protecting those watersheds and thinking about where that water is going. So again, a nice lesson to kind of demonstrate that, and pairs really, really well with this brand new water ag mag that we have also. So a good environmental Earth Day conservation type lesson for you there. All right, Stephanie, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. And I do want to add that on the teacher resources page of WADA Watershed, there is, because there is a student worksheet that goes along with it for students to kind of brainstorm and, think about, well, what would it be like if you were living in one of the lower areas versus the top area? Do you want all of your water and your soil and everything to be polluted with the, fertilizers or anything from the people who live, up above? Or in the higher topographical, oh my gosh, I totally messed up that word, but on the higher area. So there is a little list on there for possible answers, just to kind of give you some. And like Kevin mentioned, and Chris had mentioned that, we going into these classrooms, we may not have a strong background in a lot of this information. Like Chris said, I did not have a very strong ag background. My background is environmental science and ecology. So I know a lot about, the connections of it within an ecosystem. But when it comes to livestock, I have had to learn a ton about it. So it is hard if you don't know a ton of the background information to go in and do an activity like this. So when we're writing these lessons, we're trying to provide some of that background information and possible answers and things like that to give it, to make it feel a little bit easier. And a lot of this stuff you don't need to know super in depth. You're not necessarily, teaching an entire unit about it. You're just bringing in some information to get them thinking about these different topics within agriculture. But we do want to try to provide as much as we can without it feeling too overwhelming. So our Circle of Earth activity, you have a baggie with a pipe cleaner and various color beads, and all of the color beads represent different things. So our Circle of Earth activity, now it does list all of what each bead represents on the activity, and there actually is, we didn't include the red bead, but you could use a red bead to represent livestock, and the fact that we not only, we're raising livestock to eat, to have some sort of food product from. So you could include that as well. But our first one, we're going to look at blue. Blue is the water. Water is a part of the cycle. Again, instilling the idea that we have cycles that are a part of our ecosystem. So water being one of them. Then we have the green and brown. So the green is for the plants. They need the water to survive, and they are planted in the brown, the soil. The soil is super important for us to be able to grow plants. Soil health is another huge thing. And then you could definitely even talk about all the bugs and microbes that live down in the soil. Then we have the black and orange beads. So we're looking at day and night. Then for our 5th and 6th grade standards, we're looking at earth science and the rotation and revolution of the earth around our sun. And so we have day and night because of that. Nighttime lets us rest. It lets plants rest as well. Plants do need to have that rest period, not just humans. And then daytime, obviously we've got the daytime for warmth. And the difference between the orange bead and the yellow bead is that the yellow is for sunshine. Sunshine, you could even talk about warmth, but that's really important for the process of photosynthesis, for us to be able to grow crop and for plants to get the food that they need to be able to grow. They have to have the sunshine to go through that process of photosynthesis. And then we have white for air. Our air is really important. Not only does it, do we rely on it for us to get our oxygen, and plants rely on it for the carbon dioxide, but there are other elements within the air, nitrogen, phosphorus, everything that we are breathing in that helps us, but especially the oxygen and carbon dioxide, which is also a part of the process of photosynthesis. And then the clear bead. So you're going to take your clear bead and you're only going to put it down just a little bit. You're not going to put it all together, but we're looking at, these are all circles. So just the shape of the bead in general is a circle, and circles represent that cycle, and all of the combination of everything is a circle when we really look at that. So then you're going to take your other end of the pipe cleaner and put it through the other side of your clear bead. Okay, and so basically that is representing that everything down here, not only do we have a cycle of everything, but everything down at at this part of the bracelet, we as humans rely on. We rely on all of this stuff for us to be able to survive. And all of the plants and soil and the animals rely on us as stewards of the planet. So it hinges on us to take care of that. And so it's a cycle. We rely on them, they rely on us, and all of the other elements. You could definitely talk about biotic and abiotic. Which beads would we consider biotic and which beads would be considered abiotic? There are both of those factors within ecosystems. And then you have them put it on. And this basically you can make it tighter or looser, and your students have a little bit of bling. And who doesn't like to flash around some bling all day and be able to describe what this means? So your students get some fancy jewelry. There are some art standards that go along with that. You're pulling in science standards. You're pulling in a lot of different things. Extension ideas, you could have them draw a picture, comic strip. You could have them write a short story. You could, about the whole bracelet, you could have them pick one and talk about why that one part is really important. Lots of different things that you could do depending on the age group of your students and their understanding. Again, on our teacher resources page, we have listed a lot of different things, a lot of different ideas of ways that you could continue this, this activity. And again, I know we said earlier, we did link, we have hyperlink for the materials, not necessarily these beads, but like the wheat and the packing peanuts and stuff. We have also hyperlinked books that we've added in there, so you can easily purchase those books from there. But and different websites and stuff. You'll notice on some of the teacher resources, there's a lot of different additional resources that we love. Soils for Teachers, our Journey 2050. You know, the Where Is My Milk From? Any additional websites and things like that. My book doesn't have Soil Sam.
Yeah, it's not in there. We just decided we wanted to share it with them.
That's right. That's right. So you guys get a bonus lesson. This one is super fun. I love this one because it's so cute. And you can do this with a variety of different seeds. So what you're going to need is your little container of soil. We gave you a little foot pantyhose in there. And then you should have a bag that has grass seed and 2 googly eyes in there. So you're going to need these for your activity. Now, we have just recently switched over to these plastic jars. You can get them from Uline. They're pretty cheap. I think they're supposed to be like spice containers, but you can get these. Previously, we had been using baby food jars, or you could even do recycled materials, maybe even water bottles. But you want the opening to be kind of small so that your little guy can sit up on top of there. So basically, what you're going to do is you're going to kind of open your pantyhose, find the end of it. You're going to kind of open that up, and then you need to remove the lid from your little soil. Again, you could moisten the soil before you do this. That's kind of up to you, and how messy you want to get. I did not, I'm just using the dry soil. You could use the potting mix, you could use compost. Again, if you use compost, you could talk more about what that is and where that comes from. So you're going to put the cap, you're going to kind of
So
put the
hold on
pannier.
though, you wanna put your seeds in there though.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Holy cow.
I moistened mine. Do you want mine? So it doesn't go everywhere?
Oh, sure. You're one step ahead of me. Thanks. No, I'll just get my desk dirty. If you want to put something down so you don't make a mess, is probably a good idea. I'm just going to make a mess since I already have. So you're going to pour your grass seed into your pantyhose. Okay, so that they're at the end. And then you are going to pour the soil in. So what I do is I put the pantyhose kind of on top and then just kind of dump the soil in there. Okay. So it kind of looks goofy at first. You're going to want to kind of put it into make like a ball shape or like a head. So this is soil Sam. It's supposed to be like a little tiny person. So you're going to kind of clump it into a ball, and then you're going to tie a knot at the bottom so that the soil stays in there. So now you have this nice little, this ball of dirt and grass. Okay, so you're gonna put water into your container. You could rinse it out first, but put some water in there, and then you're going to set your clump of soil on top. Now you want this part hanging down so that it's kind of pulling the water up for when it needs watered. So you have this, and then with your googly eyes, you should be able to peel the back side off. It comes easily off, and then you're gonna put eyes on him or her. You could also have different, felt material or other kind of things if they want to decorate or give them a bow tie or necklace or anything. You could have your students decorate their little soil Sam. They could rename their little soil person. Cannot get this off. Here we go. All right. So then you have your soil Sam, and then you're going to put them in a sunny area, and then eventually the seeds will germinate. They will start to sprout through the hair. And so that's going to be their hair. It's going to sprout through the pantyhose and it'll become their hair. A lot of things that you can do with this, again, when we're looking at inquiry, what are some variables that might change the growth of the hair? Originally I said, put water in here. What if we put Mountain Dew? Mountain Dew's got a lot of caffeine. Is that going to make the hair or the grass or whatever, you could do wheat if you wanted to, is that going to make it grow faster? Is it going to affect the color of the grass once it comes through? Is it maybe going to be not as densely grown, or some of the seeds may not germinate? Put it in different areas, the amount of light, heat, all of that kind of stuff. And then you could have them measure the hair. And then if it gets a certain, length, you could have them give them haircuts and all of that fun stuff. So lots of fun stuff that you can do. And like I said earlier, you could talk about compost. If you're using compost, you could talk about fertilizers. Why do we use fertilizers? What is the benefits of fertilizers? What are, like the pros and cons? What are the downfalls of fertilizers? Why do we use them? Where do we use them? And then you could talk about soil. So I have one last quiz for a prize. If somebody can tell me the Illinois state soil, what is the name of the Illinois state soil?
Drummer.
Drummer, yes. Okay, so two people. Who said that first?
It doesn't matter.
Nobody's on, so I can't see anybody. So Chris, I'll let you.
We have multiple prizes. Heather, and who else?
I think Madison, was that you too?
It was, but that's okay. Whatever. It's fine.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Yes, it is Drummer Soil. So we do love the website Soils for Teachers. And the 4 is the number 4. And then you can go look at the different soils by state, click on Illinois, and it gives you a lot of information about drummer soil and then how drummer soil came to be. We're looking at the glaciers and how that carved the topography of the state of Illinois. And then you can talk about how that has affected agriculture and why we're able to grow certain things. Looking at soil, what is soil made from? Chris wrote this awesome activity, the Play-Doh core sampling, and it comes with a little article that talks about what the soil is made from, and so our silt and clay particles and all of that. And our soil ag mag is again a really awesome resource to pair with this. And then, so we have shared lots of those books. Erosion is a really fantastic book by Darcy Pattinson that looks into pulling in some social studies and the Dust Bowl and Hugh Bennett and all of that fun stuff and why it's important to keep soil healthy. But then also the Oh Say Can You Seed, Dr. Seuss, lots of terminology with seed germination, monocots versus dicots, all of that stuff that you could definitely include when you're looking at this little activity. So that is
I had a
Soil
couple
Sam.
thoughts there. I think Stephanie mentioned you have to use monocot seeds in this, right? Dicots won't push up through there. So you could use wheat in this. This could be another way to incorporate wheat into there. Grass works really well too. We wouldn't typically fill the container with dirt. We just did that when we shipped it to you to save one, make it one less plastic bag we had to use. So typically you would just, have the soil in another container and students could get it. You're probably going to want to have students fully dunk that head into water so it fully soaks those seeds to get them to germinate a little better. And it may be something that, the teacher needs to mist the tops of them every day to kind of keep those seeds wet there too. So yeah, a couple other things to go with that. So, all right, very good. So we have one more bonus lesson for you here. This one's not in your booklet either. So you should have had a little thing on cardstock, a quote from somebody about soil. So if you want to get that in front of you. So this is our Say It With Soil activity. This is another one that's definitely got some both English and social studies standards with it. So it would fit well in both those content areas. This is also one I think you could use this upper elementary through high school. You could use this. And we have about probably 50 or 60 soil related quotes. You wouldn't have to limit this to just soil. I mean, you can incorporate quotes from all different aspects of agriculture. So there's lots of variations you could do with this. So there's I think there's 9 or 10 different quotes that we sent to you. I have no idea what quote you got. We didn't pay that close of attention to it, but we should have, theoretically, we should have at least one of every quote you all should have. We're gonna use breakout rooms here. It's partly selfish because we're gonna do an activity on Tuesday with all 100 coordinators using breakout rooms, and we've never done it before. And I really wanted to try it with a small group first. And so thank you for being our guinea pigs here. Connie was on talking about the magic lesson. So the members of the magic team are gonna be on Tuesday, and you're gonna get to pick from a list of 5 different activities that they're gonna provide, and you're gonna choose which breakout room you wanna go into. And then you'll get to pick 3 different times. And so we're just going to do this one time. The idea with this lesson is that it's kind of like a think, pair, share type lesson. So students would get the quote, they would have a chance to read it, think about it. You could ask them to do a little bit of writing about it, to put their thoughts in writing, or they literally could just think in their head about it. Then they would turn to their partner, share their thoughts about their quote, get some insights from their partner, and then take turns sharing. And then you come back as a full class and talk about these different quotes. Things we could talk about is what we think the quote means, maybe what we know about who said it, or maybe even the time period that it was said in. Is the quote still relevant or still true today? Are there implications or are there relations we can make from this quote to things going on in the world today? So lots of different ways to interpret this. This is a great activity that doesn't have a right answer. It has a lot of right answers and very, very few wrong answers to it. It's just to get students thinking about soil more in more depth, basically. Okay, so I'm going to randomly assign you to a breakout room, assuming I know what I'm doing, which is not always a safe assumption, but it should transfer us all to breakout rooms randomly. I have no idea if one of us will end up in your breakout room or not. So the idea is that you're gonna, in your small group of 4 to 5 people, you're going to have a minute to read your quotes. You might have somebody that's got the same quote as you. Everybody might be different, but you're gonna take a couple minutes and talk about these quotes and think about what they mean to you and what they mean to us in the world today, okay? Before I bust you into breakout rooms, are there any questions about that? Okay, so I'll give you a few minutes in there and then I'll, again, assuming that my 5 minutes of Google research was correct, I should be able to send you a message that you have about a minute remaining and then it should pump us all back into this main room, okay? All right, so I'm gonna create, let's see, I'm gonna create 4 rooms and we're gonna try this out. All right, here we go.
I don't know why Kylie didn't go. Chris, do you know why Kylie didn't go?
I'm gonna try to move her.
Oh, she's there. She's in room 3. She just didn't go. She might not be.
She might, yeah, she might have left, yep.
Can we go in?
That's what I'm trying to see. I
Oh,
don't
it
think
just
so.
says join.
Oh, yeah, you could, yeah, so yes, you could join a room, yes.
Okay.
Sorry, that's me. I jumped in. You guys all doing this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, keep going. I'll listen.
Mine says, I know of no pursuit in which more real and important services can be rendered to any country than by improving its agriculture. George Washington, 1794.
Mine says, when tillage begins, other arts follow. The farmers, therefore, are the founders of human civilization. Daniel Webster, 1840.
Mine says, essentially, all life depends on the soil. There can be no life without soil and no soil without life. They have evolved together. Charles Kellogg, 1938.
So, what you might do, oh, I'm not broadcasting, sorry. But what you might do, this is Kevin, there we go. What you might do then is try and, which one stays, which one means the most to you? Which one is most rings true? Well, you know, you got some unique ones. These are all on the Soil Ag Mag. And one of mine is one of my favorites. You guys didn't get it, but it talks about, it's Leonardo da Vinci that says we know more about the movement of celestial bodies than we do the soil underfoot. And I'll pick on Jill going, well, all of you have education backgrounds, but think of all those classrooms you walk into where the planets are listed, right? You have posters of the planets. I mean, when your educational career, remember all those posters with the planets up there? And I can tell how old you are if you think Pluto's a planet or not, right? And I learned the planets when I got sick with chicken pox at the same time I was learning the books of the New Testament in Sunday school. So I have to stop and not do Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus. I get them confused still because I was just memorizing them. But I'm all about NASA and that kind of stuff. But we know more about the movements of celestial bodies than we do the soil underfoot. There are more living creatures in 3/4 cup of soil than there are people on the planet. And we don't know anything about it. And one of my quests is how do we make soil sexy? Because, you know, if it weren't but for the 6 to 12 inches of soil, yeah, not only would we be hungry, but we would be naked too, right? So everything comes from the soil. So anyway, the quote there is the idea is to discuss those. I think, Kim, you had Daniel Webster. Right, you
George
did?
Washington.
You had Washington. Who had the Webster quote? Did somebody have a Webster quote?
Did.
Yeah. So, I mean, and so Daniel Webster, I was hoping it was Kim because, Daniel Webster on that Kentucky-Tennessee border, that kind of stuff. I mean, there's a lot of this history that goes into it. This soil fertility and taking care of the soil. I mean, you might think that's a Greta and a Greenpeace and a UN kind of thing. People, we've been talking about this for a couple hundred years, right? And how important soil is. So this is a great lesson for middle age, fourth grade and up, but for adults too. Connie talked about that. Maybe you might have to go and do a presentation to funders or maybe a board or something like that. But typically we do a think, pair, share activity where everybody thinks theirs and what does it mean to them. And then you turn and you share with your buddy and then everybody shares it out loud, and which is the favorite quote, that kind of stuff. So just kind of a neat thing. So yeah. All right, I'm going to leave this room and go somewhere else. You guys can talk quietly amongst yourselves. How about that?
Sounds good.
It automatically muted me. Sorry.
So what we'll have to figure out for Tuesday, when you left, it stopped recording. And then when you came back here, it started recording again.
I get it. I recorded into the thing. So I don't know if we can record those.
So it did record when you were in that room?
Because
Okay, so
when I
that'll-
entered, they're like, start recording, and my picture wasn't on yet. So
what we'll do then is you'll have to just hop from room to room for like each, for each session, but you won't be able to get to all 5 though. I'll figure it out.
we'll talk about that tomorrow
Yeah.
or
we'll figure that
Thursday.
out.
Yeah, we got time.
Do you think, how much more time do I need to give them?
Oh, I'd say you're about done.
Okay. All right, I'll wait like a minute here. I can hear Stephanie still talking out there, so.
Well, I think she could talk.
Let's see, I think it gives them a minute. Yeah, it gives them a whole minute, so yeah.
Okay.
Are you able to see who's in each room on your view too?
Me? Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Room 4 is done. Welcome back, ladies.
All right, well, 15 more seconds and these other groups should join us again. I am so glad that that worked. That's awesome. Yeah, good. All right. I'm excited. That's good. So the idea would be, in a classroom, you'd have the small group or partner discussion and come back to the full group. So I'll offer that out. Is there anybody who had anything that was particularly insightful said in their small group they want to share with the big group about any of these quotes? Who knows? Maybe we've got another prize sitting around here. I don't know. All right, that's okay if you don't. So, all right.
Soil is important.
There you go. Yeah. So, all right. So that is our Say It With Soil lesson. Again, that is on our blog, on our website. There's about, I think, between 50 and 60 quotes in all that you could easily make into these little, we have laminated ones that we typically use with groups. And so they can be reused over and over again. So that's a good option too. So, all right. That brings us to the end of our lessons here for Ag in the Classroom 101. So now's the chance for you all to ask questions. If you have comments, ideas, anything that you'd like to add for the benefit of yourself or for the group.
Well, I will add, because I wanted to say this earlier, is that all of you coordinators are gonna, bring your supplies into the classrooms differently, whether you have it all in a tub and you're just handing out materials, or you kind of do something similar to what we did and have them kind of already, cut and maybe baggied so that it's easier to hand out the materials. So there's a lot of different ways that you can do that in your classroom. And again, it's going to be up to how comfortable you are, what you like to do, how your teachers run their classrooms and all of that. But I know our coordinators do a variety of different things with that.
All right, well, unless there's any other comments or questions, I think we can get you out of here earlier than planned. Kevin, anything else from you?
No, I think that's it. So again, thank you for participating. Hope you learned a couple things. If you have any questions, make sure you let us know. Next week, we are doing something very similar. Actually, it'll be a big box. You'll have an hour's worth of more stuff from me. Sorry, I don't get to do the fun stuff. I do the boring stuff. And then we do have an hour's worth of magic kits and also information from our various commodity groups. So tomorrow morning, we will be, my staff and I will be working on your boxes. The good news is those boxes are in our office. The bad news is they're in our office. So we'll be getting those shipped out and we'll get those out tomorrow. Those will go to everyone and you will get an email with the links and all that kind of stuff. If you go to the blog site, beyondthebarndoor.wordpress.com, I will put both of these sessions online and those will be up there shortly. So if nobody has any,
I'm sorry.
go ahead.
I was gonna say, if you missed it earlier, we are hosting the after school snack, every other month. And so we are really trying to highlight more of like that background information. So if you feel, maybe not as comfortable with an ag background or some of these different topics, and they are following the different calendar months. But if you, I encourage you to join us so that you can get a little bit more of that background information. We're going to also highlight more books as we always do. And so that's just another opportunity to grow your understanding of the different topics that we're talking about. All of our lessons are based on. So there's that option as well, and that is on the blog, right? Chris, is the link on the front page of the blog.
Yep.
And then it's also, if you follow us on Instagram, the link is in the bio. You can sign up there. And then I just want to encourage you to use the Facebook, especially if we're putting messages out there, to make sure that you read what we're putting out there, just so that you don't miss anything. And there's a lot of stuff. So just try to read all the way through. Don't just stop halfway.
All right, very good. Well, thank you, everybody. We appreciate it. Reach out if you have any questions. Alyssa, I'm going to reach out to you to talk about flower farming at some point. So, all right.
Thank you, all three of you, for everything you did today.
Yes, thank you.
You are welcome. Well, all right. We will see you guys next Tuesday. All right. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you, you too.